Okay, it being 5:30, February 24th, 2025, I will call the meeting of the Shelburne Select Board to order. The first matter of business is acceptance of the minutes from February 10th meeting. Tricia, we all got copies of the edits that you made. I have no problems with anything that you did. Um, Andrew's not with us, so if you'd like to make a motion for acceptance.
I will move to accept the minutes as amended.
And I will second that motion. We'll put the matter to a vote if there's no further discussion. Okay. Tricia,
Aye.
and I am I. The motion passes 2-0. Liaison reports. We have uh, mine went out last week. Tricia, yours have come forward, and I actually really like this because there's detail that you can read, go, what was that again? Go back and read. I rather enjoy that where the verbally getting a liaison report. Sometimes you say, what did she say like 20 minutes ago? So I think it's working out well, and thank you for the comprehensive ones that you put in. I see Andrew. Welcome aboard.
Good evening.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, I agree. I really like that when we can get them in. I think it's a really good way to handle it. And if do you want to do Andrew's first and then updates? I just have three very quick updates.
Well, we started with yours. Let's go right ahead and finish it then.
Okay, so Tom, the Emergency Management Director, is on the agenda for the Rec Committee's March meeting to discuss the use of Cowell as a shelter and to improve their storage area. And he did get the SOI in on time, the statement of interest that he needed to do. Well, I see the Senior Services District folks here, but they did provide a clarification. I noted in my notes that I was going to follow up on a question about accounting. So Vadar Systems provides the software platform, and the human side of the accounting needs is what they're going out trying to find right now. Right now, CBiz seems to be a top applicant for that. And the MVP Action Grant was announced today. So that's a huge development. It's due on April 4th. The match requirement for rural and small towns, of course, that's one of us. We have a population of under 7,000, is going to be waived. Yay! So that means we can do it. Additionally, we can request to receive a 50% portion of the grant funding upfront based on demonstrated need. That's just going to be a statement of financial need of the community and why upfront funding is necessary. But I will say that EEA will consider this request and reserves the right to approve or deny it. So stay tuned as I work on that. That's really big news from MVP today.
Wow, really good. Okay, Andrew, do you have a liaison report for us this evening?
I do, yes. I spoke with Jeff Johnston today at the Highway Department. He he and his crew were, whoops, excuse me, my video seems to be spotty. He and his crew have been out and about downtown picking up snow and trying to get ahead of what is some expected rain to keep the drainages clear. Um, he said Steve Hoare is out on 3-day bereavement leave, and accounts that are overspent for the winter budgets are for winter diesel, heat for the highway garage, and winter sand, though they do have a full shed of sand and salt put by, so they're in good shape there. I did speak to Jeff about kind of a perennial issue, which is that the Iron Bridge is owned by the state of Massachusetts, and so I asked him, how does that get plowed? And he said that he runs his plow down and back across the bridge, And the town of Buckland does use their small sidewalk snow tractor to do some clearing, but I have noticed in my own foot trips across the bridge that it's pretty icy and snowy. So I asked if he would consult with his counterpart in Buckland and see if they could come up with a plan to improve that, since I'm not sure waiting on the Department of Transportation is our best option. So um, we'll see how we do on that, but perhaps this coming rain will be helpful.
Terrific. Um, Andrew, on several meetings ago, we looked at a request um, submitted contract from Eversource for moving the poles at our request for the Bardwell's Ferry Dragon Brook Bridge. And Tricia brought up some questions about, are they in jeopardy from flooding where they are, et cetera, et cetera. And he was going to go back and look at that. Actually, I think we were meeting on a Monday, and he said, I'm actually going out there on Friday and I'll look at it. Do you know if anything's come of that since? Because they were looking for a contract and a payment to get those moved that would then impact the start date for potential replacement of the Dragon Brook. And I didn't want them to be ready to act and not have the poles moved. Is that something you could follow up on for us?
Yeah, I can talk with Jeff about that. Yeah. So
Terrific.
you want Jeff to consult with the Eversource people about
Uh,
whether the poles are in fact in a
if they're
or
cheap,
whether their proposed new locations are too flood prone to make that advisable.
right? He had given us a plot plan of where the different poles would be and the price.
Mhm.
So is that still in play, or are they going to do a new one? I guess is the question.
Mhm. All right. I'll see what they say.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Um, I don't see the finance committee unless that's Galaxy Note 9. Is that possibly finance committee? No. So their first appointment is 5:45, so we'll sit on that for a bit. We can jump down to old business. Item A, the Community Action Food Pantry Services regarding the possible funding sources. You recall that we asked them to come up with a couple of things. One, is there a possibility of getting other towns who have really significant use of the uh, pantry to kick in? And secondly, what would be the least amount that they would need to make it sustainable until the next fiscal year? And we have not heard back from them last I knew. Terry, have they responded as yet?
They responded late this afternoon,
Ah,
but honestly, because of the whole internet situation, I wanted an opportunity to review what they sent and speak with Buckland first.
no problem. So we'll pass over that item for this
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you. Um, Item B, Department of Veterans Services, the HERO Act request that we got from the Veteran Services Group. We asked the assessors to review the question. They did. I'm sure you both have seen the communication they sent us, and I'm out of order, but in a nutshell, here it is. They did vote to recommend the adoption with a percentage of 60% of the statutory exemption amount for disabled veterans. We asked them what that financial impact would be, and they believe it to be about $4,040. So is that
Um,
something you've given any thought to, whether we want to support that?
let me see. I had a note there. I was way buried halfway through the meeting material. Sorry, it took me a
I
minute to get
know,
there.
it took me a bit too.
It's okay. So, I'm looking at the difference between the 60% and the 80%, and it's $900. but that $900 would make a huge difference to our veterans. And I'm wondering why we wouldn't go up to the 80%.
There is nothing preventing us from doing that when we put it to a vote, to the best of my knowledge. Will that be correct, Terry?
Aaron will be on this evening at 6:30 if you want to wait and just follow up with that question, if they had rationale behind.
Okay.
Okay,
That makes sense.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I do see the Finance Committee has joined us. Welcome, guys. We're a few minutes away from our published time of starting with the first. I don't see any other items that we can start with that wouldn't push us way beyond the next 5 minutes. Since this is not a public hearing, just a scheduled appointment, I think since the Finance Committee, we can go ahead and begin that process at this point. Anyone have a problem with that?
No, who's Galaxy Note 9?
No idea.
This is Sue Bishop. I'm here for the budget request for the senior center as well as the COA budget request at 6:15.
Got it. Thanks. Hi, Sue.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
Are you expecting Julie Marino to be here?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are actually,
Okay.
and I think Penny Spearance and I believe Sylvia Smith and possibly Nancy will be here as well. So
They are all here.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my phone to work with this. I usually do it on the computer, so this is a little new to me. So I apologize.
Well, the other three are here, and so we will wait for Julie to come on board.
I think, Terry, you can change her name.
Yes, I can. I'm texting Julie at the moment.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm glad the technology is working for you right now, Terry. I know you've had a day.
Yes, so we've heard.
And not fun at all.
We did mention it earlier that we'll just take a minute to explain that when Terry got to town hall this morning to begin the work week, there was no internet and no phones. Comcast is a supplier, right?
Yes.
Yes, Comcast was down. Over the phone, they thought it may be a modem issue. They said somebody would be there within 4 hours, turned out to be 6. Wasn't wrong. Nothing was wrong with the modem. It was a sheared wire outside. And it finally got repaired, and couldn't have been a worse day for Terry not to have internet or phones on a select board meeting night, but she plowed through it, and
Here we are.
yeah, actually had to go to the police station to do a Zoom for the Board of Health meeting at 9 this morning. So it doesn't take much. We sure get spoiled with the technology of the day for sure. Okay.
Julie is here.
Oh, there she is. Perfect. Well, let's begin. We're only a minute away from the appointment time. So this is the West County Senior Services District budget presentation. And Julie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Select Board Finance Committee. And also today I have Christine Baronis and Sylvia Smith, who are part of the Board of Managers. And also here to support Penny Spearance and Sue Bishop and Nancy Brewer. So thank you all for being here. So tonight we will be presenting the budget for the FY26 Senior Service District of West County. So if I could, I know everyone has a copy. For time-wise, it takes me about 8 minutes. I've practiced to get through. So if we could go to the last page, page 4, which is A4. It's A4 benefits and service units. And as everyone finds it, again, it's just a reminder, that as we become the senior service district, there's a few different line items that will be found in here. So I just kind of want to address everything. And by the time I get through, hopefully some questions will be answered, and whatever's left, we'll address at the end. So on page A4, what I have done is every year, right now, Shelburne is our fiscal agent. So under the Hampshire Trust for insurance, we go by, I adjust in my budget, whatever the percentages may be for increase or decrease. None, there's ever a decrease for insurance. So what Angel said is that the Hampshire Trust anticipated an 8% increase. So what I did is increase the amounts from 2025 for FY26 by 8%. At the last line, you'll see that the Franklin County retirement plan. So the goal is ultimately that the staff that are under the Hampshire Trust and the retirement umbrella right now will be folded but under the district, and then the district will be responsible for those premium payments. So what is a Franklin County retirement plan will go up from about 24,667 to about 30,000. So I just wanted to point that out, that was an increase. But at the bottom line, you'll see the 83,877, which is the total amount for all the benefits for the staff under the district. And the bottom of the page, which will be more relevant in on the front page when we get there, is just kind of demonstrating, it's a 5-year average of utilization. So a reminder, our formula is that we utilize My Senior Center and the code system that we have to be able to identify how many seniors in Shelburne utilize the senior center, how many members, everyone's a member, but who are active. And so we track the number of people that come in and also the activities and the events and things that they are. So just as a refresher for you, the bottom grid is really kind of demonstrating the 5 years that we utilize to come up with that average for the assessment on page 1. So it'll demonstrate that last year Shelburne had 301 folks that were active, which is not too bad. It's about a little less than 50% of seniors that are in Shelburne. And this year, you had 312. So the total utilization, and that's what duplicated served is, 6,748 hours, which will be on page 1, which we'll get to. So if you can go to page 3, which is, and I'll be really brief with this because I know time. Page 3, A3, really just kind of covers salary details for the senior center. And the reason I like to share this is what we're asking each town for the district is different than the total amount. So in other words, each town receives a formula grant from the Office of Age and Independence. That formula grant, again, is applied to mainly the cost of my salary and Teddy's salary. So when you look at the municipalities, what we're asking for each position, we're supplementing through grants, through FRTA, through the Title III grants that we get. So that kind of offsets that. So that page is just important to understand that the total amount of salaries is a little different than what we're asking when we hit the operating costs. And then if you could go to A2, which is the Senior Service District budget for fiscal 2026, this will have, so just a refresher again, is the first column is what we're operating with now. The second column is what we're looking for FY26. And then from there kind of right is the different funding sources that contribute to that with the final amount in your total budget. So this year, what we're looking for, I just went through salaries and we did increase by the 3%. The district going forward, will determine based on federal guidelines what they want to do with that. But right now, I included the 3% increase for staffing. So that's reflected in the FY26 at 107,420. Right below that is the benefits, which I went over with you, on page 4, and that number is translated. Under operating costs, if you jump way down to facilities really isn't changing. We don't anticipate any rent changes or anything from the Masons. And oil, heat, even though we're under the auspices of the town right now, if we maintain that, those costs should not increase. What we're really looking at is the middle, the operating costs. So we've had to add some line items as the district and having no fiscal agent. All 3 towns declined to be fiscal agents, so that will require us outsourcing to be able to get support around accounting. Under the accounting expense, that was 7,900 and it's jumped to 40. Again, part of that 40 is looking at the Vader software, regardless if we go with Markham or any independent, it has to be a municipality-based type accountant. They will require a software. Most people use Vader. So the Board of Managers is right now working to, acquire that. Along with the accountant. So those costs are within that. Both the accountant and the bookkeeper treasurer are kind of in question. Those are the only 2 lines that could either go down or up a bit, but we feel that we've place marked it in a place within $5,000-$10,000 going either way, and that's really kind of incredible thinking since we have to outsource all of this. Insurance liability is something that was covered under the town of Shelburne. It won't be. So we'll have to get that for not just our site, but for FRTA contract and for our staff, and for the site itself. And the legal we have obtained, and that's at about 2,500. So those under the operating costs have increased the cost for the district a bit. So going down to the bottom line, last year it was 231 basically for operating costs. This year for FY26, we're looking at 299, which is a difference of about 60,000. So if you go to the very front page, we're almost done. The front page, again, the cover page covers. Now you see how we came to get the numbers that we did get. So you take the numbers that you get for operating costs and to run the district. And then you take also the utilization of seniors in the town of Shelburne. And you apply that by the 5%. So granted, just a reminder, that 2019 was kind of a killer year. That was pre-pandemic. And so the number in that number, was a little bit higher. So it looks like things have gone down a bit, but we're starting at 20 now and going through 24. So incorporating all those, Shelburne was applied with a percentage of 45.6%. So if you apply that number to the total cost of 299,067, it does come with a total town assessment for Shelburne at 136,375, which ultimately from last year is an increase of 26%. But again, that's utilizing all 3 towns that we have right now as the district going forward. So that's that. If there's any questions on all of the pieces.
Andrew, Tricia, any questions? Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks to me like the large bulk of that $60,000 difference is in your accountant, bookkeeper, insurance, and legal costs, that all of those associated with becoming a district. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. If we had maintained as just a senior center, it would have been about 1,000 or 2. considering computer costs and a few other things. But yes, outsourcing some of the things that we've become accustomed to, having Shelburne as a fiscal agent is a big challenge. And so finding people who can do the job appropriately and within the guidelines of the district and maintaining, operations that's where we landed.
And just so I can be clear on the difference, the the current arrangement in which Shelburne is the fiscal agent, do we just simply absorb that cost, or is that cost shared by the other two towns, or
No,
how does it currently work?
as fiscal agent, you can see in the first column, Andrew, for FY25, it was 7,900. So
Okay.
we've paid, a very small amount for all this wonderful services we've received through the town, but we pay approximately a 3% of the total cost to Shelburne. And at one point from before me, when I'm understanding it used to be for free. So, kind of making this jump is going to incur costs that were covered under a fiscal agent, which none of the three towns agreed to be. So as you outsource, it's going to be a little bit more.
I have a question if you're done, Andrew.
Go ahead.
Um, so regarding that, Julie, is the $40,000 the accountant and expenses? You mentioned software. So is that for licensing to the software? Is it a purchase of the software? Is it a purchase? Is it going to be an annual fee? In other words, or is it going to be you just buy the software once? It's a big expense up front, but then there's some kind of licensing fee that you just pay annually thereafter. That's much less.
So good question. My understanding as of now, since we haven't acquired the contract itself, my understanding is we're purchasing the software and the license to utilize the software in conjunction with the accounting firm. So because Vader has contracts with certain accounting firms, there's certain things that are already built in as far as licensing. The annual cost, that I don't know. I don't know yet.
Okay, so that would be a good thing if we can find out, because it could be that this is just a big upfront cost that will diminish over time, or, once you get the software, they'll do their updates, they'll do the licensing, and it's only going to be a few $1,000s going forward.
Exactly. And that was my thought, and we're in this kind of weird place. And as things go forward, I'll immediately provide Terry with any updates and I'll be revisioning each budget, with date. And it's a unique kind of situation. But my understanding, and that's why I increased the computer line a bit, part of it was for my senior center, which is now approved statewide to be our reporting for the state. So I've increased that cost a bit, but there's still some wiggle room that I would have if I needed to revisit that next year for an ongoing cost.
You're talking about the line roughly in the center of that chart, 7,500 up to 8,500. Is that the line item you're talking about?
Yes. Yes. And part of that is my senior center has also increased their costs. So I'm trying to offset it between the foundation, which is, our fundraising arm for this district senior center, what they can provide. And then as costs go up, I've put it to the town a bit because those numbers are actually what we utilize for all of this. We've gone from the code system now completely to my senior center of people checking in. So all the numbers that you see are actually physical people putting a key card in front of, a kiosk to check in. So it's pretty cool.
Julie, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was you had built in an 8% increase on insurances.
Yes.
We've heard a substantially different number. Terry, can you refresh my memory what that was?
It's been voted as an 18% increase. Angel was notified probably 3 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. That's too bad. I just spoken with her. Then, well, then that's going to make a difference, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes.
This is for health insurance? What insurance?
Health insurance.
Yeah.
That's on A4.
Yes. So instead of the 8%, then it'll be 18. So I'll readjust until I can get some final numbers.
That's the first line item, 57 up to 61,
Yep.
8%.
Yep.
Okay.
So is there any movement afoot to recruit more people from Ashfield to utilize the new or to utilize some of the services? Because it looks like their usage rate is quite a bit lower than Shelburne's, which I would imagine has something to do with transportation, but I don't know. What's your take on that?
It's a great deal that has to do with transportation. And that's why I think also the records are really good to look back and see the utilization has always been low. The time that it was the highest was during the pandemic. Ashfield utilizes the most outreach hours. And, while we have some satellite programs up there, it's obviously not quite enough, but the bulk has always come from Shelburne. And the goal is always, to increase those. In the spring, we're starting utilizing Elmer's for more activities. So we do anticipate Shelburne going up, but we also anticipate through the district and now having a very independent fiscal agent that some other towns are going to start coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And some towns have shown interest. So, going forward, we'll see. This is the hardest part, kind of constructing something that all three towns in general voted in. So now that it's here, providing, what was expected and what's dictated in the legislation and in the language is what we're trying to deliver. And I think it's a really good start. It's just a
Let,
little more pricey.
yeah, let's have the finance committee join with any questions or comments.
Good question. Okay, I've got a couple. You
Fire
hear me?
away. Yep.
Okay. On the service usage. On the service usage, do we do any validation of who is actually a resident of Shelburne?
Yes.
How
Yes.
do we do that validation?
So there's kind of a double check system, sir. So when someone is with my senior center as a platform, it's a software that's utilized. We can use it for state reports. It's that kind of credible. So we do registration sheets. And what you're seeing for this past fiscal year is we've only done that on my senior center on this platform. So basically on the registration, there's a mailing address and then there's a physical address. And there have been people that say, well, I have a Shelburne post office, but I live in Coleraine. So it's really like, where do you pay taxes? So under this form, we have that double check system where we're getting mailing addresses versus, physical addresses. So everything under my senior center, we have decided to not go with mailing addresses because we have a mailing system through Adams Direct. We're only inputting physical addresses. So when we input, we're putting the actual place of where they live. And so when we go to pull data from my senior center, I can pull by town, I can pull by age, it runs all kind of statistics. It's specifically by township. So it's built into the system to only be by township, not by mailing, if that makes sense.
Right. We still have so much trouble with it that would it be too much to ask to have our town clerk verify that the Shelburne residents are actually residents of Shelburne?
Not at all. I mean, I can talk to Joe and see. I mean, I've shared with Joe, we try and get from each town, I also get a list. Ashfield has a great little binder that I have. And
We don't need to know about the Asheville residents. We only need to verify that the Shelburne residents are actually residents of Shelburne.
I understand. So the town clerks, what I was saying is, each town has a different method of providing that information, and Joe is really good about sending a whole printout. So if someone wanted to go through that to make sure every person on my list was Shelburne, but I have 99.9 confidence that everyone in my senior center that I have listed as a Shelburne resident is.
Okay,
But
we're
it
looking
would
for
not hurt to do a double check system.
We're looking for 100%. We've run into so much trouble with the schools on this that, that's why the question. Not that I question anybody's ability, but everybody says, oh, we've done it perfectly. And every year we find a student that's not from Shelburne, so
Understood.
I asked the question.
We'll try and close that loop.
A couple other questions here. An observation at the bottom of A2, your numbers don't add up. Your column under other grants, you've left the number out of the bottom so that it doesn't add across. Your extreme right-hand number should be the sum of the other numbers there, and it's not.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, you're right. And again, that would increase my total sum, but that would increase town municipalities. But
I
thank
don't
you
think
for
it makes
that.
any difference overall. It's just the presentation is not accurate here.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll correct that. That's why we come to these meetings, to catch these things.
And then in the center of the page, the last item under operating there. FRT contract is shown as $8,500.
Yes.
Okay, we're showing that there was no expense the previous year. What is this? What previously covered that expense?
So I had an increase in navigating the budget with FRTA. And so certain expenses that are incurred through FRTA, not just the drivers and the benefits and their pay, but it's also kind of the overhead. And the one thing we never put in was training, CPR. So that's why that's put under there. But that comes from the 107,000 that I get from FRTA.
Yes. Okay, I couldn't understand what you're saying.
That doesn't affect the town.
The other question, in particular, in terms of this $50,000 increase for the accounting and bookkeeping and so forth, and the senior services district being a new district, is really the first year that we have their budget. At the end of FY26, year and a quarter, almost a year and a half from now, unspent funds in your budget, where do they go?
Obviously, I try and totally avoid that at all costs. But there was some when I had started through pandemic, we had some excess town funds. And what we did last year was utilize those funds for infrastructure. We bought new computers that were more updated, and we utilized the funds that way. Worst case scenario, which I don't foresee happening, is then we would have a discussion with the towns and look at the assessments and what's there. But ideally, we never ever, want to be that. I'd love to be within $5. But, there has been in the past a surplus due to the pandemic and the loosening of people coming out and the utilization of services, but that's really not an issue anymore. So I don't anticipate that. But anything left over, then it would be a discussion with the towns and with the finance committees.
The reason I bring it up is because of that $50,000 accounting expense there. If we, approve that in the budget, and then you find a deal with somebody that does for $7,900, we've given you another $40,000 that we run.
If you're referring, sir, to the FY26 that we're talking about right now,
Yes.
we will know within months. Right now, we have a ballpark. We have anywhere from 20,000 to 80,000. So bringing that down in discussions with FERCog and other folks, tried to round it to where we think we would land. So when that changes, yes, that will change before town meeting. That will also change in the next month or two. As soon as those numbers are more accurate where they land, that's what I'm saying. I'll send a revision and send that to Terry for your review.
Okay, my point, my reason for concern there was because the number was so, it's a guesstimate basically.
Yes, sir, it is.
Probably on the high side, and where are those funds gonna go if we approve that at this level? But if you say you're gonna revise those numbers to more solid numbers, that's where we should be, yes.
Exactly. Yes.
I think that's it for questions.
Okay, Andrew?
Yeah, just to follow up on that question that Jim raised about the accounting expenses. One suggestion that I have for the new district is that as you go forward and sharpen up that number and recruit somebody, hopefully to provide good services in that area, to evaluate that going forward. And if you determine that it might be in all of our interests to go back to a town fiscal agent model, to engage all the member towns in that conversation early, like in the late summer or fall or whatever. And perhaps, we might come up with a shared system of each town taking a 3-year turn at that, or whatever number seemed efficient to, not burden you all. But, given that that's just admin money that isn't really benefiting the seniors, if all towns were willing to carry the same water in that direction, then that would be free up money that could better be spent to actually serve seniors. Terry has an idea that maybe that's not such a good idea.
That's not happening this year.
No. I'm looking to the future.
Yeah.
We did
That sounds really
explore that.
awesome.
We did explore that initially, but because they're a separate district, they would still need separate books, separate software. We couldn't share our accountant with a district. It would have to be 2 separate jobs, 2 separate computers.
Right. I remember we had that discussion a while ago, and that, part of creating the separate entity was also going to make it possible for the senior district to look for other ways of doing things. And we wouldn't be able to just say, oh, well, it's a separate district. I mean, the town of Shelburne would never engage in doing the books for some other separate entity. Like they wouldn't do the books for the school district. They wouldn't do anything for the fire districts. I mean, it just keeps everything neat and clean. And yeah, it's going to cost more, but there's more involved now. And I think what we're doing is laying the groundwork for some sustainability and growth on the part of the senior services district, which I think is what you folks wanted to do.
Yes.
So now you're going to have the opportunity to get other towns involved, whereas before you were very restricted to just using the 3. So yeah, it's a big bite, right? It's going to be a big bite this year, I think.
Yeah.
Getting the groundwork in, but that's why I was asking about that the software, because sometimes it's just a big upfront cost, but then you have a minimal fee going forward.
And
So,
that's what it looks like, correct. And
So-
yes, ideally 9 towns, but you know, there's many people from other towns that are involved, you know, in the senior center, and they just can't get outreach, and that's going to be more in demand than ever. So that's kind of the lure also for other towns as they look into this. But yeah, it's a big bite for now, but at the same time, it's kind of situating a place for seniors to be able to access more than we were able to, not in the first year, but going forward.
The transition from a town department to a independent district, we expect some growing pains in the first year, and you've taken on quite the challenge here. And as you say, it'll all work itself out, but we'll look forward to more concrete numbers on those things, like the possibility that the insurance is 18% and the actual real numbers for accountant, et cetera. But for as far as you could take it for tonight, I think you did a great job. Does the finance committee have any further comments or questions for this?
No, we're good.
Okay, Andrew, you had another thought?
Just a closing thought on that, which is if in fact the district proves to be a good model for expanding services to other towns, I'm all in favor of that. And if it turns out there is a need for creative thinking about administrative expenses, I encourage you all, including the member towns, to keep your minds open to different arrangements and configurations. And I'll give you 2 examples. The sewer districts of Shelburne and Buckland are independent legal entities, but they live administratively in the town of Buckland, which receives a fee to manage the sewer districts. So that's an example of kind of hybrid sharing of 2 different entities using one town's administrative services. We have done other sharings with the police departments in Shelburne and Buckland. So none of those are exactly the same as the senior district, but they offer possibilities of different kinds of efficiencies if people choose to look for them.
Yes,
So
I agree.
keep your minds open.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And like I said, if there's any other surprises other than the 18% benefit, if I counter anything else, you know, I'll immediately put it in. So I'll do a revision with the 18% for benefits and how that will hit assessments. But I think I'd also like to wait a few weeks for our next board of managers, when we're going to see continue to get a little bit more information. But I feel that we will land right in the vicinity that we're at, and utilization, other things won't change. It'll just be expenses. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to the COA and to Sylvia and Christine for being here. And I'm just going to hang for the COA piece unless there's any more questions.
We're there already.
Thanks.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes, thank you very much. It's 6:18. Let's move on to the Council on Aging budget request. We have the document dated January 17th. Who would like to speak to this? Sylvia, Suzanne, Nancy, Penny?
I will.
Fire away.
All right. I'm the chair of the Shelburne COA, and this is something that we've actually been discussing for a while. And as I mentioned in this request statement, our role is going to be changing somewhat as the new district comes into full operation. But we as a COA have been collaborating for at least 13 years now with the other 2 COAs for some activities that are not totally separate from the senior center, but we have been the ones who have arranged them, planned them, provided the food for them. And we've done most of these in the evenings when the senior center isn't operating, which has benefited people who are still working but are interested in coming. We will still be in an outreach mode when the new district is operational. But all these years, we have been providing through our own pockets, for the most part, all the food and materials and things for the programs that we've done. And so we're asking for a small request for a budget of about $1,000 for outreach and similar activities that we would be conducting over the next fiscal year. This is something that the Ashfield COA has been getting for as long as I've been on the Council on Aging, which has been 14 years. And Buckland, I think in the last couple of years, has also granted their COA a $1,000 line item for this sort of thing, for our own activities that we can do, complementary to the senior center, and sometimes at times that the senior center can't operate, and we don't utilize typically their staff. I mean, they've helped out sometimes, but that's not something that we lean on. We've done it ourselves. So, we have put in quite a few volunteer hours. That's mentioned in the statement as well. And I guess if you have any questions, I'm all ears.
Just one on the surface. If Ashfield and Buckland have been getting 1,000 each, roughly, let's do round numbers, are they contributing to the expenses that you have in putting on these? What do you call them?
No, their expenses have gone to
cafes.
Their expenses have gone to specific activities that they've done for the seniors in their towns.
Okay.
That's what they've done. So, I mean, we could talk about collaboratively doing this for future conversation cafes, but for the most part, their expenses, their funds have gone specifically for the seniors in their towns.
Makes
And
sense.
that's kind of what we're looking at. We feel that as a Council on Aging, we will be having more Shelburne specific activities as well as collaborative activities.
Great. Any
If I
questions?
could, sorry, Rick, if I could just do a quick, kind of overview. We're lucky enough in their consortium to have 3 councils on aging, most throughout the state. The senior center and the COA, they're directly related. As we go forward, not just with a consortium, but as a district, the councils on aging, have great plans, and each town is independent in what they do. So each town does something independent for the seniors, and they're also not just events, they're there if we need to call, hey, someone needs this, or someone needs check writing, or someone needs this. So each town runs independently. 4 times a year, they do a conversation cafe where, they're combined, and the senior center can provide the site and some of the supplies. But the majority of the time, each council on aging is kind of putting forth their own time, energy, but also supplies and money. And, so that's really kind of why it would be wonderful to really empower the councils on aging through all 3 towns right now, especially Shelburne, to have that piece, so that they can also be a supplement, important supplement, not just to the town, but to the district. So that's my little piece. I just wanted to really endorse that.
Thank you for that. Andrew or Tricia, any questions, comments? Hearing none. Finance Committee? If you're talking, you're muted. Let's see. Yes.
No, we're good. We don't have any questions.
Okay. Terrific. I don't either. I
Okay.
think we've covered it. You covered it well, Penny. Great. I appreciate it so much. Seems like a reasonable request to me.
Mhm.
And I thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening. You're welcome to
Right.
stay on the course. All right. We're just a few minutes early for the assessors. Don't see any of them on at the moment, I think. Oh, dang. We forgot to ask, I'm losing my mind. Oh, that's the assessors. Never mind. I mixed two things up.
Take a breath.
We have a few things to take care of and keep straight, don't we?
Find your mind. It's all good.
Oh, I lost that long ago. Goodness.
Rick, are you waiting for the assessor time to begin?
I think we should, since they're not on yet.
Okay, I do have something if we've got some dead air here, something I was gonna stick into other business, but just to say that we all got a mailing from the Municipal Association about request for us to lobby on behalf of maintaining hybrid meetings in the legislature. And I was just going to say that might be a topic for future discussion for us to say, do we want to send a letter to our legislators or something to that effect to say that we want to continue to meet remotely or what? Terry, do you have it? You looks like you have a thought.
I did contact both Paul Mark and Natalie Blay and asked for their support and continuation of
Oh, good.
remote.
So
only
we've covered
because-
that.
Yes.
Fantastic. I just thought we should take some action there since we have been meeting remotely for quite a while.
Thank you for doing that, Terry.
You're welcome. I'll try to call Karen.
They're cutting it right on time, I'm sure.
I guess while we are waiting, I should also say that I will abstain from discussion on the salary page of the assessors because my daughter is an assessor. So I'm offering that disclosure.
Terrific.
Okay.
Do we have are we expecting Ted Harvey tonight?
No, just his letter.
Just his letter?
Yes.
We might be able to deal with that quickly if
Karen's signing.
perfect. Let's do that one.
Mm.
Hello, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Sorry about that. Good
Hear you.
evening, everybody.
A well-oiled machine tonight, running a little early.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yes, the assessor's budget. I believe you have what I submitted to Terry. No significant increases or changes. I don't know if you have questions. The one thing that we were looking for was to purchase a laptop for the assessors to use. In the past, so for instance, right now, I'm actually using Montague's, and I will be retiring from that position at the end of this week. So that's no
Oh.
longer an option. I do have a Chromebook, but I don't think I have the ability to Zoom on that. So just because I think there's a lot of educational workshops that are done remotely. for instance, if we were to set up a meeting with our appraiser, Sansucci, we'd do that using a laptop. And I just think it might be time to consider having a laptop just for the assessors to use if that's possible. So I did call Northeast IT to just get an estimate. He thought on the high side, 2,000 would be something that would get us a laptop that we need. And then the license fees, Zoom and anything else I'm not familiar with. So we just sort of put in a quote of about 200. It may not be that much. So other than that, I don't know if you have any other questions about the line items.
Tricia or Andrew?
I think you answered that. That was the one line I had called out, Karen, was the laptop purchase. So now that makes sense, and congratulations on your retirement, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Everything else makes sense that there's 3% increases in pay.
Yeah, again, that was filled in by Terry, so I assume that's across the board. The other increases, the software and things like that, they're a little more difficult to predict. I usually find out right about now what the costs are going to be. The other item that I thought you might really have questions about would be the cyclical inspections. We had hired somebody by the name of Jay Wellahan to help out with the inspection specifically. I give him the information on the building permits. So while it looks like we may not have needed that much, I think what I want to point out is that he'll be going out in the spring and finishing some of the work, building permits that were issued for this year. So those funds may be drawn down before the end of the fiscal year. I just didn't want you to think that we only had used about 1,900 of it.
In 2024, it looks like you didn't use the full allotment either.
Yeah, I think we were kind of at a tipping point of deciding who to hire. We had a contract with Mayflower, and they had indicated that they didn't have the personnel. So I think now that we have somebody else doing it, we're sending him out more, I should say. I'm giving him more properties to inspect. So in addition to those that have pulled building permits, we're also trying to get caught up on what we call cyclical. And just going through, we didn't have an awful lot of properties, record cards that had house pictures on it. So we're also trying to get up to date with that.
Okay.
The Access GIS software maintenance.
Yeah.
That's you're at 3,000 6 months in with a
Yeah.
2,500 request, and you're
Yeah.
staying at 3,000 for next year. I presume that's a new annual fee that they expect to be the same next fiscal.
Yes. So what that is when you go onto the town website and you go to the assessor's data, Access GIS are the maps that link the assessor's data, the assessor's property record card, with an address that you can pull up on the mapping. So that's their software maintenance and support. It's not required. However, in this day and age, it almost seems to be expected. Realtors use it, banks use it. It's a way to get assessing data just by typing in an address. And so that links it. So don't really have a control over those costs. They simply tell us, here's what it's going to cost.
It's an annual fee then.
It is an annual support fee, yep, for them to host that data for us on the website. And then underneath it is really the same company, but those are the physical maps that we have in our assessor's office. So I send off all the changes to them annually, and they update the paper maps, if you will. And that's what the cost of that is.
Finance Committee, any questions from you folks?
Of course. Hi, Karen. Congratulations on retirement. First question, at the bottom of your contracted services page, the funds carried forward. What are the funds carried forward you have here?
I'm sorry, what's the question? Is you're asking me about funds carried forward?
It's on the bottom of your contracted services page.
The 16,901.
Mhm. Terry, can you help with that at all?
Yes, because it's assessor's contracted services, we carry forward any unspent balance. And I'd have to get an update from our accountant, but I believe we used a large portion of that to offset the cost of the hydro appraisal in this year. So I don't believe there's much of a balance carried forward anymore. It's just that when we created the article at annual town meeting, we took into account that we had 16,900 to offset the cost of the hydro appraisal.
Okay, so assuming we appropriated 27.5 at last town meeting, 16.9 or so of that was from accumulated funds and the rest from taxation.
Yes.
Oh, very good. Thank you. The hydro inspections or hydro assessments, appraisals, how are those going, Karen?
So that's going well. They provided us with a new valuation for FY25. Great River did not like the new valuation and has appealed it, and we are speaking with them. I think if you recall, I don't know if I shared with you, but there was a bit of an issue with where the boundary line was. So we're talking with them. We met with them at our last meeting. We'll be meeting with them again. But yeah, that was Sanssouci, the new appraiser did their job and provided us with an appraisal report, and that's where we're at.
So the boundary line is under discussion.
Yes, the boundary line and the valuation. I think both of those issues are under discussion.
Very good.
How much did the evaluation go up?
I'm
assuming it went up.
Yeah, it was considerable. Sorry, I don't have any of that information. I certainly can get back to it. It was pretty significant. I think if you're considering the fact that we or our appraiser found maps that indicated the boundary line was the bank of the river, then we picked up a larger portion of assets in the dam, and as well as increasing overall the valuation of Deerfield Dam number 2, I believe it is. So they're very amenable to talking and working this out so that we can find some answers. But it's still sort of a discussion in progress.
And the assessor we hired to do it, the reevaluation is working on that border issue.
We're discussing it with him. I don't know if that falls within the realm of what we hired him for. He certainly came up with some maps and some information that he relied on to make his determination as to where he thought the border was. So now it's a matter of Great River kind of responding with some information that they have as well. So yeah, we're working through it, and be happy to maybe have another meeting in executive session that we can kind of fill you guys in on more detail as we find it out. So still a little too early for that just yet.
Okay.
Let's change subject then. Streetlights. Do you have any idea how much tax revenue we'll lose now that Eversource no longer owns the streetlights?
Um, no, I don't. Did they actually transfer their poles over to the town? Do you know?
No, just the fixtures.
Just the fixtures, okay. I could look at that they do file what's called a form of list with the town every year, and they list in detail what they say their assets are in town. So I can compare their new form of list, which they'll file with us by March 15th, to last year's and try to see if they've removed that portion.
I would
And
certainly
then I'd
expect,
be able to tell you. If I knew what the valuation was, I'd be able to tell you.
just most, I can't imagine it's a huge amount, but just, was it included in the analysis of the economic benefit of the town owning the streetlights?
Hmm.
I believe we paid 13,000 for the fixtures themselves. So
Mhm.
not going to impact the tax rate that much difference that if, and that price was set by Eversource.
That'll make it sound like they paid about $15 in taxes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Certainly they have their transformers and all of their other equipment has some significant value. So I'd have to really kind of dig down in the details to find that to answer your question. But they do have an obligation to file with the assessors a listing of all of their personal property. So it's probably in a report that I will be getting very soon.
Good. Any other questions for her?
I can report that the street light outside my house is very faintly flickering, so I'm not sure how much tax value that represents.
Rick, John Welsh has a comment pertaining to the streetlights.
Yeah, so two comments. One is that the uh, poles, there will be 3 or 4 poles that the town is purchasing because there is no Eversource equipment on those 3 or 4 poles, specifically at the intersections of certain streets. And the actual installation should begin March 5th.
Coming right up. Terrific.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm happy to take a look at those forms and report back to the finance committee or select board, however, or both if you want.
Both.
Sure.
Any other questions from the finance committee? All right, hearing none. Before you go, Karen, we did get the recommendation on the HERO Act from the last assessors meeting, and you folks recommended the 60 percentile, I think, impact of $4,040 or something. If we did that for those veterans in our town. And Tricia had a question.
Right, now I gotta find, I think it was page 21. Hold on. Let me get to the right page. It was 21.
Yeah, you asked about going to 80%, which was from $4,040 to $4,900. So a short $900 difference that may have significant impact for the veterans and minimal difference for the town. And you wanted to ask about that.
Right, yeah. So was there a reason that you chose the 60%? Or was it just sign of, it was in the middle, we went with that? Would it be out of the ordinary if we approved going to the 80%? Do you have any issue with that?
Yeah, I certainly don't. I don't think the board that decided on the 60% would either. They just felt that that was a good place to land. I think that the other thing everybody should know is that the governor's bill also increased the amount of funding that the veterans get directly in their benefits. So that was something I wasn't aware of. A veteran had made me aware of that recently. So in terms of what they get for their annual I should say monthly disability payments, those are going up significantly. The amount on the real estate, as you said, that could almost be doubled if a town were to vote. And then the third thing is they no longer pay excise tax on one vehicle. So this bill, there were a lot of different things that addressed and helped veterans. And I think knowing that, that's where they sort of landed in the middle, as you said, Tricia. So I don't think they would have any issues at all if that's what you wanted to put forth for the voters to decide on. That's certainly your prerogative.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Did
Rick?
Yes, Andrew.
Just a question for Karen while we're here. Just thinking about this issue from an equity perspective, are there, does the town offer any sort of similar tax rebate for people with disabilities who are not veterans, or is this strictly for veterans? That's one question. And the second is, are these disabilities service related or just any disability for the veteran?
Oh, your second question, it is service-connected disabilities.
Okay,
But
thanks.
The VA has determined that this veteran has a service-connected disability in a certain range. They file that paperwork with us. As far as your first question, unfortunately, no. The only other categories, and we sort of talked about this, other than veterans, uh, folks that are considered blind by the Commission of the Blind, they get a benefit, they get a reduction off of their taxes. And the only other category that I can think of is seniors. So individuals who not just meet an age requirement, and I believe in Shelburne that would be 70, they also have to meet income and asset requirements, meaning they can't have very much money in the bank, nor can they own much in the way of other assets other than their home. We don't include the value of their home. So
You're
as
talking about the seniors then.
the seniors, right? So those
Yeah.
are the only categories. So yeah, if you have somebody who's not a senior, who has a disability and is not a veteran, and the disability is not site related, then no, there isn't really anything. It's very, very specific category of individuals that are allowed these reduction on their real estate taxes.
Tricia.
Yeah, if I may, so the issue of equities, it's not actually an apples to apples situation here. A veteran who puts their life on the line for their country and is harmed in doing what they volunteered to do, that's different than somebody who has a different kind of disability that, maybe they were born with it, or maybe they were in an accident, or maybe there was something else that happened. So providing extra help to veterans who put their lives on the line so that all of us can be here on Zoom making decisions about the health of our community is why we have these extra benefits available to them. And they're not available to all the veterans. They're available to the ones who are 100% disabled, which is actually really, really hard to get from the VA, which is why we don't have that many in town who are 100% disabled. And Karen's going to correct me.
Right. So there's a couple of different categories. You're right. There's a category of veterans who are 100% disabled as determined by the VA. But then there's another category, and that is the one that most of our veterans in, and that would be veterans who are less than 100%. They get a less amount. As it stands now, the statute says they get $400 off of their taxes, but there is a category for veterans who are not 100% disabled. So
Either way, you can't get determined to have any kind of disability from the VA unless it is service related. And so this is a way for the community to thank those veterans for the service that they've provided, the sacrifice that they and their families have provided, basically, that they became disabled while defending us. So that's why it's a little bit different. It's not completely apples to apples, though I do understand the concern of trying to have an equitable situation for everyone who's disabled, but veterans are in a special category.
Okay, let's wrap this session up. We thank you for the information. I believe it would
Thank
fall
you,
to
Karen.
the select board to decide whether we put this forward to town meeting. Do you guys want to put this to bed and make a vote this evening as to whether we would put forward the 60% recommended by the assessors or the 80% option that Tricia has mentioned, or would you prefer to carry it forward to a future meeting? We've had it for months. It seems like we could put this to bed personally.
I'd like to make the motion to do the 80%. I'm going to the page. I know there's some specific language we could use, right? So hold on.
You'll have to vote, two things. You'll have to vote to adopt that new clause. I believe it's 22J.
Right.
So the town, to see if the town will vote to adopt 22J. And then if the answer is yes, the percentage shall be
Okay.
80%.
So I move that we adopt clause 22J in the amount of 80%.
No, you're going to put
No?
that on the
Separate?
town meeting.
Okay.
You're
So
going to put it forth at
that-
town meeting.
Right, that has to go to town meeting. So we just want to make a decision as a select board that we will put that forward at town meeting. Correct?
I
Karen?
would. I move that we put it forward at town meeting.
And
I'll second that.
and I will accept the motion in the second. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, what we're voting on is simply to bring forward the benefit in general, and then the second motion to go to town meeting will be the specific percentage.
Correct.
Okay.
So do we make the second motion tonight as well?
I thought you just did them all in one.
No, Karen told us that we have to do one and then the other, and the second one goes to town meeting.
But actually, Andrew, both will.
They both have
So
to
they'll
go
be,
to
right, so it's the voters of the town that are, you're simply offering it to be put on, to be voted. So you're
Okay.
taking that step to put it on the warrant for the voters to discuss. I suppose at town meeting, they can vote to increase the percentage, decrease the percentage. You're simply allowing that to be
They
put.
cannot vote to increase it. They can vote to decrease it, but you can't increase a warrant article once it's been posted.
Well, all we're doing this evening is making a motion, or a motion's been made to put the matter before the voters at town meeting. Two parts: to adopt the clause called the Hero Act, item 22J, and then if they do, to recommend or have a second item for the percentage, and we would recommend the 80% at that in that article. Is that correct?
Sounds right, yes.
All right, I thought that's
Yep.
in a nutshell the motion you made, correct, Tricia?
Yes.
Andrew, you're still good with your second?
I thought I was seconding the first part of that motion, so why don't we take them in two votes?
Okay,
Fine.
so we'll do the first one, which is that I would like to move that the Hero Act acceptance of 22J be presented at town meeting as a warrant article.
Second.
And any further discussion? Been moved and seconded. We'll put it matter to a vote. Tricia?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
I am aye. Motion passes 3-0.
I make a second motion now that we put forth the 80% Now I'm on the wrong page, so sorry. The 80% benefit for veterans upon acceptance of 22J.
And we have a second. I will
Go ahead. Yeah, second.
second it to get to discussion. So calling for discussion. Any further discussion on the motion?
I'm more comfortable sticking with the assessor's recommendation.
We'll put the matter to a vote. We're down that rabbit hole, right? Tricia,
Right. Yeah, I want 80%.
and Andrew.
Nay.
And I will vote aye, and the motion passes 2-1. Great. Thanks for getting that one put to bed for us. All right.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Have a good
Karen,
night.
great
You
job.
too.
Thanks.
I see that Josh and Susan and Caddy are here, and we're 5 minutes late. Sorry about that, but
It's okay, we're enjoying the show.
all right.
Did you bring popcorn? I don't see popcorn.
We had a bunch of fortune cookies.
Chinese fortune cookies.
Oh, very cool.
And two of them said, "You are going to be amazing tonight at town meeting." And
Oh my God, I got the same fortune.
you did. Okay.
Oh, man.
Who would have guessed?
Wow.
You know,
Who would
that's
have guessed?
I want to know where you shop for your Chinese.
And we brought
What
a
did-
cat.
What did the cat get in his or her fortune cookie?
We don't know because the cat eats everything it wants to.
All right, let's move forward, gang.
Sorry.
This is the renewal of the lease from Ancient Glacier. And the request was to change for fiscal year 2026 to a new amount of $4,245. The previous amount, does anybody have that? Was like
3,700, according to the chart that you folks sent. Is that correct? I have a payment of $831.24 of $3,700.
Yep, I see that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. How do we speak to this? We pay you guys taxes, and your taxes went up, and all we're trying to do is cover our expenses as per our lease, and cover our expenses and have an truly infinitesimal amount of profit, which keeps us okay with the IRS, and so.
Yeah, there's a specific question?
Yeah. If you have, maybe we can try to answer, or we can get the answer. We did have an increase in amortization, which we got from our accountant. We bought the property in the beginning, hoping to put some paint and lipstick on the building, which was there. It turned out that the building was hopelessly mired in everything, and we ended up taking the building down. And to do that, we needed to do everything from asbestos remediation to a rat survey, and dust mitigation and a bunch of other stuff. We took the building down, so our original cost for the building and the property was almost doubled because of the cost of taking it down. And during the years that, we've always paid the town taxes. What we originally hoped was we just wouldn't pay tax and you guys would have a park, but it's never that simple, is it? And so,
so we're looking at a difference roughly for you to in your estimated column for 2025, net income after depreciation of 4236. You're looking at 4245 as the new request. So you aren't exactly going to get rich, as you said, with that $30-40 difference.
This is all we're living on.
Jeez, we'll send Chinese your way. Tricia, you brought this forward. You have had a question and you put this on the agenda for us. What are your comments?
So yeah, thank you, Rick, and thank you all for being here. So the issue was really involving the depreciation. So your depreciation costs went up before we even got involved in the lease. The lease didn't start until July of 2022. And
Correct.
your increase, according to this chart, which has lots of writing all over it in my own hand, but when you sent that chart, your increase in depreciation went from $175 in 2020 to $698 in 2021, which is almost a 300% increase. That was prior to our engaging in a lease with you folks. And now that was part of what, when I asked about why the price went up, depreciation was one of the items that you listed. And part of the explanation was that there were some drawings made and you had to capitalize those, even though those drawings weren't utilized.
Correct.
So I'm wondering how the town could be on the hook for things that happened before we even engaged in a lease with you.
Well, as you know, the way depreciation works is that if we purchase something or if you have a business and you buy something that a computer, for example, you can't depreciate it all in 1 year. You need to depreciate it over the course of 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So you can take 1/5 of the value of that machine or whatever. We have had a bunch of things that we did from to the property from the very beginning, from the day we bought it. We tried to build another building on the property, and we had a whole host of expenses that included everything from having to pay the state to apply for a loan. We had to pay the state $5,000, for example. That was just one of our expenses. And I think that we can't explain, but we could probably find the answer to exactly why the depreciation increased from 2022 to 2025. But this is what we get from our accountant in Greenfield, and we have no reason to doubt that I mean, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on here. But if that's what you want to know, I think we can find the answer.
Yeah.
Well, and what you said about depreciation makes perfect sense when you're talking about equipment or a building or a computer, but this is a piece of land. Land doesn't depreciate like that. And
No.
what the answer that you guys provided was that there were drawings that weren't used that had to be capitalized. And now that's what the depreciation is coming from. And all of that, I believe, happened prior to the town engaging in a lease with you. So I'm wondering why we're going to have to make you guys solvent or help you be profitable.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I've been speaking when Susan perhaps can better explain.
There's two threads, I think, in your comments. First is, why is there such a big increase in depreciation? And why did it potentially occur after the start of the lease? I think it's important to know that we relied on the net income, total expenses for 2020 and 2021 and crafting an initial amount. I can't actually explain today, because I didn't ask for a depreciation detail on why it jumped up the way it did. And I'm going to get that. However, when I talked to the accountant, she gave the answer of there were drawings that were done. And those are drawings regarding land. Land itself is not depreciated, but improvements to land are. and that item was capitalized. But Tricia, I can get you a more detail on why the depreciation went up. But I would also like to point out, if I might, that from 2021 to 2022, taxes went up $570. So now some of that may be timing related, but when we set the price, we didn't anticipate the taxes were going to go up that much. Now, I point that out that, we can look at that and you can look at us, but we are where we are in terms of where our expenses are right now. And we're hoping to make a small profit on the land.
Well, it's actually, we don't really,
I can't hear you, honey.
truthfully, we don't care whether we make a profit or not, but the IRS does care.
Yes.
And so we have to show some profit in order to have.
It's the difference between the property being classified as a business property for which expenses are deductible, as opposed to personal property where expenses are not deductible. So we were hoping to have a year here where we would have a little bit of profit. The IRS does look for commercial businesses to be profitable in 3 out of every 5 years. That's motivating us here.
And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is when we took the building down, we had this choice of leaving a cellar hole there and a fence around it, or filling it in with, we could fill it in with fill, but we actually filled it in with loam so that we could grow grass on it, so that it could become not an eyesore, so that it could be at least something that would be attractive in the middle of town. And we did that because it's the right thing to do. And we also thought that we would actually improve this park, that we would make this into a really attractive pocket park. And we were prepared to spend a significant amount of money of our own funds and then rent that to the town. But the town seemed like it just wanted the land the way it is. And I think you've done very well with it to keep it mowed and to build that little pergola or whatever you call it. But we did do some complicated drawings to try to make it into a stage and an arena and all sorts of stuff, and plantings and rocks and all sorts of stuff. So those drawings did cost money. They were never implemented. I should also say the Conway School of Landscape Design also did drawings, and so we tried to integrate their thoughts into the whole plan. I think we can get back to you with some very exact information from the accountant. We just didn't know what exactly you wanted to do, but because the accountant, of course, is going to charge us to figure out whatever we need to figure out. But we'd be happy to get you back or get back to you with that information. I do want to stress that we are, and you guys must realize this, we're not really in this for the money. We bought a building that we thought was going to be successful, and it wasn't. And over my life, I've made a lot of financial decisions. This has to be at the bottom of the well thought out ones. And
so I'm gonna clarify a couple of things with you
Sure.
here. And I think the park is lovely and it's great that we have it. I just don't know that I'm going to point out 2 things. So one of the things that you brought up was that the taxes went up from 2021 to 2022 by $500, but they went down in 2023 by $300.
Yep.
And
True. Yeah.
okay. And then they
Went
stayed
back up.
relatively the same in 2024. I mean, it did go up, but it was like $40, right? And then it stayed flat, presumably for 2025.
Yeah.
So the tax increase, I mean, it's true, it went up 1 year, but that's not the year you asked for an increase in rent either.
Let Susan.
And then the second thing was that I'm reading what you folks said that about how the value of the pocket park is determined each year, that there's no methodology for it and you don't value the pocket park each year. And then the second thing was that the recent increases in depreciation are explained by the cost of drawings commissioned for the pocket park that were not implemented but were required to be capitalized as improvements to land. So that's where I'm getting that phrasing from. I didn't come up with it. That's what I guess, Susan, you got that from your accountant. And so I don't know that I've never heard of drawings being capitalized for purposes of depreciation. So I have a few issues with this. That's all, that the price is going up. And I understand your point, but I also understand that as a town, it's not really the town's responsibility to make sure that you're making a profit.
One of the things I'd like to say about the decline in property taxes is that, if anything, it illustrates that expenses are unpredictable. They go up, they go down. I've never heard of drawings being capitalized either. I'm relying on an accountant. We tried to price it with a very low profit margin to the benefit of the town. Had we argued for a higher price to begin with, we might not be sitting here today. And we've ended up in a situation where we were hoping to turn a profit. And that was an important consideration when we drafted the lease. And so we were kind of hoping this would be the year, with a fairly small increase in terms of dollar amount, that we would be able to turn a profit. It's not much. Expenses are unpredictable. We're just kind of trying to stick our head above water for a couple years. I'm not even sure we are going to turn a profit.
That is actually true. Our insurance costs are clearly going up because of it's. I can try to explain that, but it'll just take too long. But
yeah.
But we should also say that in the lease that we both agreed on, you guys don't have, you can walk away from this. You don't have to keep this lease. You can break it at any time. And I mean, I'm assuming that neither of us wants to do that.
We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that. We think what you've done with the land is really attractive, and we love it. Every time I drive by, seeing somebody sit on eating lunch or playing music under that pergola, or just hanging out in that park, makes me feel great. But I promise we can get back to you with a more specific thing about the depreciation, why it went up, or how it went up, or for what cause or reason.
Listen, I've heard both sides. I appreciate the input. I have an S corp and an LLC myself. I understand where you're coming from. I also understand the cost. We're talking an increase of $545. And although it's not insignificant, it at the same time is, and you could feasibly, if you go and ask your accountant to give you more detail, you might need more than that to break even with
that is entirely possible
with a $45 profit. I don't see any reason to put you through that personally over that. I think you answered the question adequately. Any other comments? Andrew, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I didn't know if the finance committee wanted to weigh in on this or not.
Oh, I didn't know they were still here. Finance committee, fire away if you have any thoughts.
We have no questions.
We're good.
Good. My issue is not so much about the fine details here, but just to offer more of the big picture, which I think Josh alluded to, which is that we entered into this project together in a 7-year lease. I think we're in in heading toward the end of the third year of that lease.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, and we have made some substantial improvements along the way through the with the help of the technical school to build a little pergola that, as Josh mentioned, seems to be contributing to the life of the business district. And years ago, we contributed substantially more, I think, to the tune of about $15,000 to support the downtown business district. So this little project, which has a net cost to the town after you subtract the 1,300 and something in taxes that they pay, is the net cost is a little under $3,000 a year to have a pocket park in the town rather than a hole in the ground. And so to me, that's a price worth paying. And I think that the long-term future is yet to be determined whether this ancient glacier group wants to, eventually take back the land and sell it or redevelop it, or whether the town might choose to offer to buy it from them at some point in the future. We could use Community Preservation Act funding to do that. So I think that there are certainly some long-term possibilities yet to be explored, but in the meantime, I think we do have a common interest in maintaining that property to the benefit of the downtown business district. So to that extent, we are in it with Ancient Glacier to help them make that $45 profit. So in that sense, I disagree with you slightly, Tricia, on where our interests lie. I would say we have a mutual interest in maintaining that land as a park.
I don't disagree with the mutual agreement that we would like to maintain it as a park. What I disagree with is that the town, as a public entity, is in an agreement that says we will help make a private entity, this LLC, profitable. I don't think that was wise. I don't think a town should ever be engaged in something that's going to say, we're going to pick this one LLC and help make sure that they're profitable, even if it's only $45 a year. I think that's a conflict, and that's where I have an issue.
That's ancient history, not too.
It may be, but the fact is those kinds of public-private partnerships exist all over the place. A great deal of affordable housing is developed in exactly that way.
To make a company profitable?
Yes.
Actually, I should. when we applied to the state for a loan, the state offered a loan where we could build affordable housing in the center of town with retail below, and we had architectural drawings done for that building and we applied for a loan where the state would have lent us a little over $1 million to help build that building. And the first payment of principal, there would be no interest for 50 years. The first principal payment was due 50 years after the loan was made. So that we didn't get that loan because we could only fit 5 apartments on the property. And if one apartment was empty, there would have been a 20% vacancy rate, and that exceeded their limits for what was possible with a loan. If we'd had 15 apartments, we could have done it easily.
So I think that's a loan, and it's different because that has terms, and it doesn't stipulate to help make you profitable. Do you see? So that's my issue is the profitability, but that's okay. I hear you, and I think Rick wants to move on.
I might ask, would you like to restructure some of the language in the lease? Do you have a proposal on that? I mean, could the conflict be, in your mind, be eliminated and still meet the goals of the town?
That's possible. The issue is we didn't have the server today, and when I got the information from you folks, the response from your accountant, and then I was traveling for 2 days, I realized I really needed to look at the lease, and I didn't get that to be able to look at it until 5:20 this evening. So I just looked at it. And I wouldn't mind having a longer amount of time to think about it now that I've heard from you all. And that makes sense. And I appreciate that. I do believe in private public partnerships, but maybe you're right. Maybe we just need to restructure this one because it says specifically, I believe in the lease, something about keeping you profitable.
All right. Well, we genuinely appreciate you holding our feet to the fire. We we're happy to justify whatever expenses, and we have been completely transparent with our costs and such, and would be happy to have this. It actually now probably is public knowledge, all of our expenses, and we'll continue to be transparent with you, and we'll try to find the information that you wish for in terms of the amortization. But now that we know what to ask for, we can be more specific in asking our accountant.
Josh, it doesn't sound like to me that would be answering the crux of Tricia's problem with it.
Well, that's true, but you'd have some sense of.
And you'd have another expense that we're going to end up paying for. I
don't think we need it either, Rick. I mean, right? Yeah, I don't think we needed the answer from the accountant. I think the accountant has provided, and I know accountants aren't free. So, I ask them one question, next thing it's like, oh yeah, that's great. And then I get a big bill. I was like, why did I bother calling? So I get it. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate your answering the questions so far. I think if I could just have more time to look at the lease and maybe you guys look at it and we can come back and discuss it again.
We're happy to do whatever makes sense for you that at least accommodates our basic needs, and our needs are truly small.
Yep.
Well,
I see that.
I think we beat this to death enough this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you
I'll
for
meet you at
being
the
here.
pergola sometime, and we'll have a.
In the snow.
Please, I need it to be warmer. Sorry, I don't do it. I don't sit by a hot fire making beautiful art. So the cold kills me.
There's a stone bench in front of the bank that will actually freeze you to death if you sit on that thing.
Oh, dang, that is so true.
All right, we'll leave you, and I know you've got other work to do. You're not by a long shot done with this, and we appreciate what you guys do.
Tricia, please feel free to reach
Thank
out
you.
individually, and there's a middle ground in all of this, and we want you to be comfortable.
You are speaking my language. Thank you.
so
Always
much.
with the middle ground. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. All right.
Okay. Old business. Hero Act. We did overtime policy discussion. After our meeting 2 weeks ago, we all had privy to the history from the public records of the minutes that brought us to the current policy. Our highway superintendent did not have that, so I had them sent to him so that he could see what got us where we are. I think at this point, bringing that discussion forward should have him present to give us feedback on the documentation that we gave him with the public records. So I don't see any fruit to be harvested from pursuing this more this evening. If you have a differing opinion, please speak up.
I would just add that I didn't know that Jeff didn't have all those minutes that we had in our packet. I thought he helped supply some of that to get the history of where this all happened. So I think that is great that he's going to be able to review that and get back to us. One thing that I noticed was I think we could probably fix this maybe easily by changing where it says emergency call-in. There's a line in there to the emergency highway response. But let's see what Jeff comes up with Because what we current have is a policy that excludes snow-related emergencies. And that didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So let's see what Jeff comes up with first.
I think it'll also be interesting to look at the budget that he presents as well. One of the
Right.
biggest problems that we face as a municipality and all those around us do is getting good people to stay in a job. And to me, this issue that just keeps coming up has a lot to do with long-term employees who get 3% cost of living, but no raises, because we don't do merit-based reviews every year. And I think the budget may show Jeff's impression of what the various staff members he has are worth to the town to keep them and not lose them to be pirated by other towns, as we've already lost one fellow that didn't make, as I said, I don't think lasted a year with us. And we lost him for financial reasons. And other towns are trying to look for people too. So I think this is something that we can pass over and look at a future time and take all those things into consideration.
So when you're saying we're going to pass it over, though, can we keep it on the agenda for next time and see if Jeff can come and talk to us about it? Because it would be good if we can get this fixed this year so it doesn't become an issue again. Because if we're going to make a change to how this happens, it has to go right forward in the meeting, and then we have to propose a change in the budget possibly if we need to.
Well, if it's an overtime policy that would affect every employee, not just that department. There's the sticky wicket. And I think personally, the better course is pay them what they're worth, and they'll not worry about the policy that's been in place in town for all these years. So I think having the budget numbers, looking at that, we did make other concessions during that process in uniforms and paying for licenses and so on. We're trying to do right by the people that work for the town, and none of us want to change that. Andrew, you're the liaison to the highway department. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. We should have a discussion with Jeff, and I spoke with him today and mentioned that I would initiate that discussion with him in the liaison role in the next couple of weeks. So we'll have a one-on-one, and then we can talk about it more together here.
Then leave it on the agenda and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks.
That sounds great.
Fair enough?
Yep.
Terrific. New business, Ted Harvey. This is a request for the Rural Downtown Coordinator Pilot Project, seeking $4,000 allocation. I have some thoughts on it. If you don't mind, I'll share those first. This was a project, they call it a project, yeah, that we all were a little skeptical about as to hiring an individual that was going to try to serve 3 different towns, and who's going to get the most benefit. Is it the squeaky wheel? We don't have the Shelburne Falls Area Business Association to help guide. I think I'd be fair in saying we were skeptical about the value of one person trying to help develop the downtown of 3 different towns. Then when I get this request and I look at it, if I still have some command of the English language, says in the very first paragraph that this 4,000 is to push the 12-month project 6 more months into 18 months. At our initial discussion in this project, it was, we'll know in a year whether this is going to work. And yet now they want to preload a year and a half and ask for $4,000 more to extend it before we even know if it's going to work. I say, my personal feeling is, I don't have any problem with $4,000 addition to expend it 6 more months, but only after the first 12. There's plenty of time here. They can ask for that 4,000 in the next budget cycle. I don't understand why they're trying to preload it in advance. The only thing that came across my mind as to why would they do that would be the potential to make it more attractive to hire someone who would know it's not a 12-month job, it's a 1.5-year job. That's the only benefit I could see of doing it at this point instead of not in the next fiscal year. So that's my 2 cents. What did you guys think about it?
I think you read it correctly.
Doesn't mean you agree or disagree, so fire away.
Yeah, I guess because they already started this project, right?
I don't think so.
It's currently been bid. There was one proposal received that a core group of us have evaluated. I've not seen the price proposal yet. The Franklin County Chamber of Commerce was the one proposer on this project.
I apologize for not looping you in on this, Terry. I forgot that you, or I guess I didn't know that you were involved in this at that level. So I probably took you by surprise with my comments.
No. I too am surprised in the first year that they're seeking 4,000 from each community.
Yeah.
I think it's the beginning of a long-term buy-in is what they're hoping for. I'm just not sure this first year is the year to jump. But
I guess they're saying they want to do it because they want to encompass 2 summers.
So why can't they ask us at this time next year and still do that?
Oh, ask for an extension for another 6 months. Yeah, I don't know. That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts?
Yeah, I did go to the community meeting that they held on this to introduce this three downtown / 4 town initiative, and that was up at the Trinity Church a few weeks back, and I think it is having served on the COVID era task force that was trying to stand in for the defunct business association and continue to, move these kinds of things forward and develop a voice for the business district. That was a very long, drawn out process that perhaps the only result of that project was to lead to this process and to finally clarify and hand over the website, shelburnefalls.com, to the local nonprofit, the West County Arts and Culture Group. So I would say we're still in a pretty tenuous state in terms of having representation in our business district that's advancing its interests. And is this the model that will get us there? We don't know at this point. And, I think that my feeling about it, though, is that there's both a math issue here and a commitment issue. I think buying an extra 6 months is a good idea for this staff person, because it's going to take them time to find somebody and hire them, and the clock will be ticking. So having 18 months, on the books is probably a good thing for the prospects for this. In the community meeting, they frankly acknowledged that, having a single staff person representing 3 business districts was not a slam dunk in terms of we've got the model. It was really more to have a staff person that would help each of those business districts to figure out its own destiny that might result in several part-time positions going forward in the future. So there's no one model that's being put forward at this point. It's really more having the opportunity to have some staffing to continue that conversation and hope that each business district will marshal its resources to develop a model and staffing that will carry them forward into the future. That's the hard problem that hasn't been solved yet. So getting to the math problem, I guess my concern is if this 4,000 is going to be matched with 4,000 from Buckland, does that mean that Northfield and Turner's Falls are each putting in 8,000? Because I would say if it's a 3-district model with 4 towns, that the 2 towns of Shelburne and Buckland should contribute the same amount as the town of Northfield and the village of Turner's Falls, just to keep the math even Steven. So that's I would support a model one in which we are equal with the other 2 participating business districts, and 2, that whatever we contribute be matched by Buckland, since they are our partner in this enterprise. So that if we do put forward a motion, it would be up to X amount as matched by Buckland.
Originally, Shelburne and Buckland's sum was lumped together, and the other 2 towns had an issue with that. They felt like we are separate municipalities. We should be assessed separately.
Well, we should be assessed at the same amount as what they're being assessed, because we are one business district, amalgamated between 2 towns.
It's a legitimate point. And to answer their request that they be 2 different municipalities, I agree. If they want 4,000, 2,000 from us, 2,000 from Buckland, that makes sense. So it's an interesting conundrum here.
I think we asked about that last time too, when not Kimberly, what is her name who came? Jessica. Right. When we asked about that specifically, because I think I asked, is Buckland paying too?
Don't recall that, but
was it last week or the week? No, the meeting 2 meetings ago. I don't have that open right now.
So if they want action from us tonight, my motion would be for up to $2,000 as matched by the town of Buckland. And if they want to discuss it further and give us reasons why we should do something other than that, then I would invite them to come and talk to us.
And you feel genuinely that it's important to preload into 2 fiscal years?
I think that having a longer run for that staff person to try to help each of these 3 business districts figure out their own success model is going to take time, based on my own experience of having served on one of those committees for about 2 years without great result. So I think that buying a little more time is a good idea, and the price is not high, especially if we're only paying, if Buckland and we are joining together on it.
Buying more time makes sense to me if you have some inkling that what you're proposing is going to be successful. And I would consider it was the worst pitch job we ever got, was we have no clue if this is going to work. Because those words, I believe, were almost verbatim in the presentation. I think I see no potential for this to be successful in the absence of a core group in each town to take advantage of working with this individual. We don't have that.
But Rick, that is precisely what is being proposed, because this project will not go forward unless there is a working group of people in each business district. This staff person is not going to fly in with their cape and fix our problems. They are basically just staffing help to each of those working groups. So if the Shelburne Falls Business District does not produce a group of folks who want to work on this together, it's not going to go anywhere.
Agreed.
All right.
I would almost recommend that the board not take action this evening. I will reach out to Ted Harvey tomorrow and the town of Buckland to see where they're at in this discussion.
I like that. Can we do that?
I'm good with that.
That's fine with me.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
We get sage advice, don't we? Good job. Thank you. All right. Police Department, you saw in my liaison report that the Police Services Advisory Committee did meet last week, reviewed the 50 some odd page document that you folks were sent early last week. The advisory committee took 2 separate votes. As you recall, the back section of this is our job descriptions, which were brand new before your time, Tricia, but during the early stages of mine in my first year, went through and were approved by the select board. So they were all brought up to date and voted through. These changes that they recommend are to put us in compliance with what the state now requires and regulations. So that became a very easy discussion. You saw highlighted in yellow the changes throughout the various job descriptions, and they recommended unanimously or voted unanimously to recommend that we accept those. So we need to act on 2 components in this, and that would be the first one. And if you have any thoughts or discussion, I'd like to hear.
I thought it was interesting that only the detective job description included a section on environmental considerations. Like you might be out walking through muck, you might be in bad weather and stuff. And I thought, well, why is it just the detective? Because traffic patrol officers might have to do the same thing, and there's nothing in their job description. So was that an oversight, or is that standard operating procedure? It just seemed a little strange that it wasn't included for everybody. So if you look at page 35 of that document, the wage and classification study, that's where I saw it. And that's when I said, wait a minute, I didn't see this anyplace else. And I actually searched for it for everybody else. And it only appears under the detective.
On page 35.
On page 35, yeah. If you scroll down, it's about halfway. Environmental considerations. Detective work is divided. Do you see that?
Yep. That's a whole different matter, though, Tricia. You're looking at what is the current policy, not the suggested. The suggested are only the highlighted yellow pieces. So if you would like to bring forward a thought of putting that into every other position, that's a whole different item, would come up at a whole different meeting. This is
oh, okay.
That's
I see. We're just
policy.
We're just here to do the yellow, the highlighted parts.
To adopt the suggested by the professional survey people to put us in compliance with the way the state has their
Gotcha. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I just went through the whole thing like an editor. So I was like, why is that not there?
You have an eagle eye for sure. Because that one went over my head. So yes, that understood. Is there any problem in the yellow things, yellow highlighted portions of any of the jobs that bring us into compliance that you'd like to discuss? If not, we could have a motion to accept and add those to our actual official job descriptions.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll put the matter to a vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
I am aye. Motion passes 3-0. Excuse me. The second matter is not to accept the recommendations as presented in the first half of this presentation, be it wage numbers, incredible amount of great information here for sure. This is to accept the wage and classification study document, to put this contract to bed with them to say, yes, we accept it as you've presented it. The alternative would be saying, no, we don't accept it as presented because. I don't have any becauses, and the Police Services Advisory Committee had none, and they had it for over a week in advance of their meeting to study and actually came very well prepared. I was pleased. And they had no concerns about the thoroughness, the completion of it as a document that we want to accept and say, hey, you did a good job, thanks. All right.
Okay. There were a couple typos, but it's no big deal. So I'll move that we accept the study document.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tricia?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
I am aye. Motion passes 3-0. Any
Trish, please send those edits to me and I'll make sure the consultant is aware of them.
Okay. Not tonight, though, Terry.
No.
Again, you definitely have the editor eye. Any other business? Next regularly scheduled meeting is March 10th.
I'm just curious about, was the West County Food Pantry in our agenda? It's in our packet. I'm just wondering
Yes.
what the issue is there.
We did not, I thought I addressed that earlier. Maybe, yeah, it was while we were waiting to have the first appointment. We asked them for two things. No, you were here. We asked them for two things. One, is there other towns possible who can contribute? Ashfield, those that are in that pie chart, to contribute, and ask them to look into that, or if it's actually happening and we don't know it. And secondly, we asked, I think this was your idea, Andrew, to ask them for what is your lowest number that you can take to put this out for one more year, because we can't do it sustainably. And we indicated that we're willing to help them. But what's your bottom number? And we have not heard back.
No, Terry got an answer, but it came late afternoon.
We had not heard back, to my knowledge, until an hour ago.
So we'll take it up at the next meeting then?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business to be brought forward by either of you or Terry? Hearing none. Correspondence. Another unfortunate situation here.
I'll say.
Letter of resignation from John Walsh, resigning as Cowell Gym Director, effective June 30th, 2025. He went above and beyond, no question about it. This is the second one we've lost, I think, in 12 months, ballparkish. The discord at the Cowell is mind-boggling, and it's unfortunate that we're going to lose someone like John, who stepped up and did right by the town. And he has, if I'm not mistaken, agreed to stay on for the projects he has going, like the window insulation project and others. He will see those through, but he's done being the director of the Cowell Gym.
I feel terrible because he was here until recently. He was at this meeting and I wanted to be able to thank him for his service. So John, if you're listening on YouTube, thank you for your service. You did an awesome job. I'm very sad to hear that he's leaving. And I'd like to figure out a way that this won't happen again. So it sounds like you have some intel on that, Rick.
Well, if you, one of the things I decided to do when I got elected was to attend every board, commission, and committee meeting in town to know the players and see what's going on. I've attended several RecCom meetings, and if you do, you'll know. You'll know the problem if you attend one. And that's enough said. So I think we should vote to accept with regret and our highest level of thanks to accept his letter of resignation.
Yeah, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion?
Thank you, John. Sorry to see you departing from us on this project.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
So let's finish the vote, and Andrew is
aye.
And Tricia?
Sadly, aye.
I'm equally sadly aye. The motion passes 3-0 to accept the letter of resignation. Terry, does this mean we contact the RecCom and have them talk about putting in an advertisement to look for another one, or what do we do next?
The select board would advertise the position. The board is the appointing authority.
Okay.
So I'm assuming John has also notified the rec committee of his decision to step down as well. I think they meet again in early March.
Okay. And he's good till June 30th. We probably don't need to do it now, but is it too early to think about that?
No, not too early,
Because
especially given the luck we've had.
I know. And if we did find somebody who could perhaps start before John was done to get a little schooling on everything that he knows, from how to control all the mini splits and everything that he knows about that building, because I don't think there's anyone in town knows more about the Cowell Gym than he does. It'd be great, and I'm sure he would voluntarily do that after his term, but that's also an ask we don't need to put him through if we can get somebody. So let's go ahead and put that advertisement out. Are you guys good with that?
Yes.
Okay, done. I see no public for comments. Think we're good. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. It's 7:51.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Aye
very
and
much.
bye. Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
See you soon.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Bye-bye.